Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel and congratulations on making the decision to start a podcast. Podcasting is very exciting. It's a great way to, share your voice, share your ideas, and also it's a great way to make a lot of money if you start gaining a larger audience. And in this video, we're going to give you a step-by-step tutorial going from absolute beginner to having a podcast up and running on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere else that you'd want your podcast to be. So there's several steps along the way we're going to talk about in this video. First, I'm going to talk about the different hardware you might need, what you want to get. A lot of people think you need a big expensive setup, and honestly you really don't. You can start for as little as $20 for the equipment. Then I'm going to talk about what software you want to get to actually record and edit your podcast. The good news is that software is free and it's also very, very easy to use. So I'll show you that later on in the video. Then I'll talk about how to actually choose the podcast that you want to make, what you want to make your title, what you want to make the podcast structure, how you want to record it, how long it should be, how often to upload, stuff like that. Then I'll talk about where to host your podcast and how to upload them so that they are found on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere that you have millions and millions of people that could find potentially your podcast. Now, starting off with the fundamentals, the hardware, like I said, people always seem to think that you need a lot of money. You need to buy big expensive microphones and big booms and stuff like that. Realistically, you don't. And you can tell the audio quality on this right here, this microphone, is actually pretty decent. And it's arguably, it's at the point of diminishing returns, in my opinion, where I could spend more money on a microphone, but this for about $120 definitely does a really decent job, especially if you start talking closer to the microphone. Now, this is the Blue Yeti. It's one that everybody on YouTube knows about. It's very popular, very common in podcasting, on YouTube, and anywhere that has to record audio. It's a great beginner microphone because it plugs in by USB on a laptop or a desktop. And on top of that, it's very easy to control, and it's also very versatile, meaning that I can have it set for one person to talk into it, or I could set it so that we could have two people talking for a conversation type interview, or however you want to structure your podcast. So this right here, I'll link it down below. It's my first recommendation. And if you get this one, the next thing you want to get is a pop filter, because you'll see this filter right here, the windscreen, the pop filter, you have a couple options there. But if I remove it and I start saying the letter P, you'll see that it actually blows out the microphone there. So it starts making very uncomfortable sounds. And with this, if I say the letter P, you'll see it's significantly quieter. So the good news is they usually either come with the Blue Yeti if you buy it on Amazon, or you might have to pay an extra maybe $5 or $10 for this. And they're very cheap, very easy to just latch onto a desk or the Blue Yeti itself, and they help improve your audio pretty substantially. Now, if this setup is too expensive for you, the alternative that I would recommend is actually it's kind of a little bit hackish. It's not many people know about this, but what I would do is I would get a lapel microphone. They're about maybe $20 on Amazon. I'll link those down below as well. And instead of clipping it on your shirt, which is going to be slightly more muffled, I would recommend holding it out in front of you and talking into this maybe from 12 inches away about. And if you're doing that, maybe even 8 inches away from your mouth, you'll realize that you get pretty decent audio. And the good thing about a lapel microphone is you can plug it right into your phone, and you can use your phone to actually record the audio with the right lapel microphone. So that's essentially everything you want to get for equipment. Now, a lot of people think that you need to have a boom arm so that it doesn't sit on your table. And in a situation like this, if you're just talking and not touching the table, not using anything, nobody else is around you, you really don't need that. Of course, as you start to progress with your podcast, getting a boom arm is nice, which is another reason that I like the Blue Yeti, because it is versatile. It has a mount on the bottom, so you can put it on a boom if you want to, or any kind of flexible arm. But what I would recommend as a beginner is if you're using your laptop and you're typing, so you notice how you're going to be hearing that, I would recommend putting your laptop on a towel and putting the Blue Yeti on the towel as well, or two different towels. So it kind of dampens the vibration a little bit, so it's definitely going to be significantly quieter, and people won't be hearing your typing on your microphone. So that's pretty much everything you want to know for hardware. Like I said, very easy to do. You have the $130 setup here between everything that, the microphone and the filter, and the other alternative is about a $20 to $25 setup using your phone and a lapel microphone. Now, the next step, once you have the hardware equipment, is to actually decide what your podcast is going to be. You want to choose a name for it. You want to choose a topic. You want to figure out how often you want to upload. You want to figure out maybe what's your budget for spending on stuff. Are you going to interview people? Where are you going to do it? And there's a couple things you want to think about with that. Now, starting off with where you're going to do it, this kind of ties in a little bit with hardware. You really want to make sure that you are in the opposite of a cement room. Now, think a cement room is going to be super echoey, hard surfaces everywhere that the sound just bounces around and it sounds terrible. Now, what you want to do instead is find a room that has as many soft, cushiony things as possible that would be absorbing essentially the sound waves that are going around. So a good place to do this would maybe be any room that has like a lot of clothes hanging up or very plush carpeting. If you have a mattress topper, you could put that on a hard wall somewhere. Or if you want to spend a little bit of money, you can go and get some sound blankets or some acoustic tiles to really improve it. Now, these are not necessary, especially if you get a microphone like this and you're talking very close to it, then you won't have nearly as much echo because it is a directional microphone. But that's where you'd want to be recording your podcast. Now, choosing a title, there are so many different titles you can go, title concepts you can go with. A lot of people just use their name. So like the Tim Ferriss Show, I could do the Mike O'Brien Show. And it's just something that if you're trying to brand yourself, or if you're already branded and people know you, then it could be a great way to, increase recognition in the future and in the present for your podcast. And if that's not the case, instead, if you want to have something a little bit more specific, so if you don't care about branding your name in the future, and instead you're worried more about trying to gain exposure now, if somebody's on Spotify and they just see the Mike O'Brien Show and they don't know who I am, they're not going to know what that's about. So for beginners that don't already have a following on Instagram or YouTube or any other platform, I typically recommend choosing a name that would be a little bit more specific to what they're talking about. So like the Daily Business Podcast, I'm not sure if that exists, but something like that would give you an idea of maybe what you want your podcast to be. So it says the Daily Business Podcast. I would know it's probably going to be a podcast about business type stuff, maybe entrepreneurship, and it's probably also going to be a daily podcast. So I know I'm going to see a new episode every day. The overall structure of your podcast doesn't change based on how long it is. What you really want to do with your podcast is very similar to a YouTube video, for example. So for example, I structured this video in the same way that you'd want to structure your podcast. So I didn't just start the video and say, all right, first we're going to go and download Audacity, and you're going to see the download screen right there, because you guys would just be lost right away. You'd think, what is he going to tell me? Is this just how to download Audacity? Is it a video for experts or beginners? Like, people don't know things right away. So it's important that you have a strong hook in the beginning of your podcast, and odds are if you've watched the video this long, then the hook for this video was strong enough to keep you here, because I told you what I was going to cover in this video. Likewise, in a podcast, you want to give people, invoke curiosity in the beginning, make some kind of promise that you're going to answer that question for them, and then go through and actually follow through and answer the question. And don't delay, don't waste people's time, because everybody has a busy life and everybody wants to get to the answer right away. And if it is an entertaining podcast, then just get right to something that's entertaining right away instead of going on tangents. People like to get off on tangents all the time and say, oh, by the way, I saw there was traffic on the 5 this morning or something, right? So depending on your podcast, it's very rare that tangents are a good idea. And I think for the most part, you really want to make sure that you follow that structure. So strong hook, invoke curiosity, and then go through and answer people's questions and keep things interesting, keep a good voice inflection the entire time, and try to avoid, typical good speech habits. Don't say a lot, don't have really long pauses or anything awkward like that. And if you do stutter, or if you say and you screw up during your podcast, it's very easy to go back and edit that, which brings me to the next phase here of making your podcast, is actually to go and download the first thing that we need, and this is going to be Audacity. All right, so to download our recording and editing software, the good thing is it's totally free to use. The bad news is the website is a little bit confusing to find the download. So it's open source, meaning it's free, which means they don't spend money on optimizing their website. So go to audacityteam.org. You can just Google Audacity. It should be the first link. Or you could go to santrelmedia.com/Audacity, and that will redirect to this right here. And across the top, you should see some different tabs. Click on download. Just click on download on the top, and then it'll ask what kind of computer you have. So I'm using Windows right now, Windows 10. I'm going to click on Windows 10, Audacity for Windows, and then it brings me to this page right here with the current version. Depending on when you're watching this will probably be updated even from this, and this looks intimidating, I understand. Now, all you have to do though, it's very simple. Go on down to the link that says Audacity 2.4.1 installer. It might be a different number for you, but Audacity something installer. And then what you want to do is just click on that. It's going to download the installer, and then just click through the different steps, and it's going to say next, and then read the terms of service, and then say finish. So the first step of what we want to do here is kind of just look around. Let's make it full screen, and I'll show you guys what we're working with here. So looking around, on the top, we have our controls. These are the main controls you'll be using when you're recording or playing back your podcast. So we have the record button right there. Of course, we can skip back to the beginning, skip to the end, and then we have the stop button right there. So if we hit record, it'll automatically start a track down here, and I'll do that in 1 second. But then we can also play and pause on the left side right there. So that's for playback. We have some controls over here. These are the tools for editing the podcast or editing the audio track, and I'll show that in a second. And then we have our monitors up here that's going to show you, so if I click on this, you can see that is the microphone levels showing up right there as green bars. Now there's two different bars because this is stereo, so there's stereo and mono microphones. Mono is going to be single track, stereo is going to have a left and right ear version. Now the bar down here is going to control your input and your output. So if you have headphones and you have a microphone, you want to make sure that you're adjusting these down here. So starting off with the left, I choose Windows Direct Sound. That's just what works for me. And then we can go to the next thing, and you have primary sound capture driver. We have the microphone, which is plugged in. Make sure you choose the microphone. Otherwise, you're going to use the onboard microphone on your laptop. Then we can choose if we want mono or stereo, two different types of microphone. You can have single track or double track essentially, so left and right ear could be different. All right, so now we have pretty much everything set up. What I want to do is click the record button. So if I just click record, you'll see that the waveform is showing up right here, and you can also see the peaks right there should reflect what's up here. You want it to be green. Yellow is pretty good as well, but as soon as you get to red, so if I talk too close, you'll see that max is out, so it goes all the way up to the top right there, and that doesn't sound good when the end user is listening to the podcast. So this is our podcast right here. I'm recording the podcast. You'll see that the time is showing up down there. We're 24 seconds into it. If I suddenly have to take a break, I can hit stop right there. I can take a break, do whatever I have to do, and then I can hit record again, and it's going to start another track right next to it. On the same track, it's going to start continuing recording is what I mean. So let's hit stop right there. All right, so now we have our audio track recorded. This is the entire raw podcast. Assume it'd be significantly longer than this. And now let's say we want to edit the podcast. So using Audacity to edit is actually very easy. We have several tools right up here. The 6 tools are really the main ones you'll be using. So starting off with the selection tool, you can click anywhere. So if I just say I want this waveform right here, these 2 seconds, maybe I coughed and I just want that to be out of the podcast, you can click and drag to highlight over that, and then just tap delete on your keyboard, and it does a ripple delete, so everything to the right slides over, and we have it split it right there, and it got rid of what was there. Then we have the envelope tool right here. I'm not going to talk too much about this one, but essentially what it does is you can adjust the volumes of different parts of your track. So if you accidentally started talking louder from somebody else or whatever happened, you can adjust it right there. We have the draw tool. We have the zoom tool right here to zoom in and out. If you have a long form podcast, you will obviously need to be zooming in to see the waveform a little better. Then we have right here the time shift tool. So if I say I really want this clip to be after that clip, I can go to time shift. I can click and drag this clip right here and make it over after the other clip. So I can slide this one over. I can slide this one over as well then. And then I can slide this one back behind the first one. So that's how you end up doing that if you need to shift them around. And then lastly, we have this little tool right here, the multi-tool. And I'll talk about all of these a little bit more in the other video, the full tutorial of how to use Audacity, like I said before. But let's just say we're finally done with editing our podcast. That's what we want it to look like. Actually, let's make those a little closer. And let's just say that's our podcast. So now the last thing you want to do is actually go up there and save the project. Well, second to last thing, save the project so you don't lose it later. Save it and then go to export. And you have a couple options here. I typically recommend exporting as a WAV. You could also export as an MP3. MP3 might be a little more versatile, but WAV should generally be higher quality, so it's less compressed. For the purposes of this example, let's just do an MP3 right here. And so we can go and save that into wherever we want. So we're just going to call it, I'm going to put it on my desktop, and I'm just going to call it example podcast. And now we're going to say save, and it's going to export that. So we have some choices here. We can add an artist name, a track title. If you're not making music, you could still add this, but it's not really going to be necessary, and it's not going to add a whole lot of value right now. So I'm just going to hit OK, and then we're exporting, and it's ready to go. So now we have our podcast. We got our equipment. We know what the podcast is about. We recorded it. Now what we want to do is actually have this upload and shown on Spotify and anywhere else. So, all right, so we have our podcast recorded and ready to go. We just have to get it listed now on iTunes and on Spotify and all the different websites out there. So the best way to do this, from my experience, this is where a lot of people get lost, but it's actually very easy if you just go through Squarespace, and they actually do this. It's a thing that a lot of people don't even realize they do. So if you go to santrelmedia.com/Squarespace, we are going to get hosting through them. It's really not that expensive, and you have a lot of other options with Squarespace. So you can have a full-blown website that does a lot more than just host your podcast. But if you want, you can just host your podcast on there. It doesn't have to be a great-looking website, and realistically, nobody will even go there if you don't want them to. So let's go to log in on the top, and we are going to create an account. So I'm going to click create an account on the top right. And for this, I'm just going to continue with Google. So I just set up an email for this. So The Mike O'Brien Show. And we are getting logged into Squarespace. So now we're getting ready. It's going to ask what kind of templates we want. And like I said, you don't actually have to worry that much about your website if you don't want to. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to go and choose this one right here. It says something about a podcast. It doesn't matter if it's related to podcasts or not. So we're just going to start with this theme right here. And like I said, you can go through and change everything on your website, make it a beautiful website very easily. And I have a full tutorial on that if you guys want to. But if not, don't worry about it. We're going to name our site right here. So I'm going to call this The Mike O'Brien Show. The Mike O'Brien Show, and we're going to click continue, and then we're going to click skip. For the rest of that, it's just going to give you a quick tour that you don't really need. Now, what we have here is our website, and I mean, I'm not going to change it right now just to show you guys what we actually need to do. So if you go to pages, then some themes have a blog already there, or some templates have a blog there. I'm going to delete it. You don't have to delete it if you have it. I just want to show you guys, if you don't have it, the way you would get it is to go up here, click on the plus icon, and go on down to where it says blog. And we're going to add a blog because technically the podcast is being hosted as a blog. That's just the way it's structured in Squarespace, but it's still going to link out just fine to iTunes and everything like that. So we can choose a theme here. It doesn't matter which one you actually go with. I'm going to go with blog 3. That seems to make the most sense. And we are going to name the blog. So I'm going to call this MOB Show, The Mike O'Brien Show, and hit enter. And then this is our blog layout here. So without worrying about all the blog posts, I'm just going to go through and delete all of them first. So we're going to go and confirm, just delete and confirm every single dummy post. These are posts that are not actually real blog posts. They're just space fillers, just to, I don't know, make your website look like it has something. Also, I'm going to X out of this little assistant. I don't need that. So now we have a blank blog page right here. And so if we click on the settings icon, we can actually enable podcasting. So go settings, go down to feeds, and from feeds, you'll see podcasting. So let's click on podcasting. All right, so we're going to call it The Mike O'Brien Show. And the author, Mike O'Brien. And then a description, we're just going to add, let's look up some dummy text. Just so we have something to put in there, because I don't actually have a full description. Let's go with this right now, copy, so we can see what it looks like, some dummy text. We want some cover art. You can make that on canva.com, for example. You change some settings down here. So if you want to have episodes, if you want to have serial, so you have a list of the oldest episodes first, maybe. I don't know. Some podcasts might be in order like that if it's a storytelling type of podcast. The length, so let's go down and optimize it for podcasting, up to 300 episodes instead of the default 100 episodes. And that is the limit of, I believe, of Apple Podcasts as well. So as we go down here, we can change other things. If it's explicit content, then you can change that. You can change the feed down here if you want to. So moving to Squarespace, we're not doing any of that because we're starting on Squarespace, and then we're going to click connect. And so it says, oh, it looks like I missed some information down here. Oh, categories. We need to choose categories. So primary category, we're going to choose, let's just say this is a business one. So business category. Let's go back and say maybe a subcategory. Maybe it's about entrepreneurship. No, it's about marketing. We're about marketing here. So we're going to say it's a marketing podcast. We can choose other categories so people can find us. So maybe education would be another category. Maybe the subcategory of that would be courses or something. I don't know. We could just give these categories whatever for this example. Obviously, spend more time and figure out the right one for you. I'm going to say business again. And the subcategory, I'm going to say entrepreneurship. So that's what we're going to be about. Now we're going to say back, and I think that should be everything we need. Oh, we do need an image here. So I'm going to upload an image. All right, so now we are ready to go. I'm going to close this, and we're going to add a new blog post right here. So it's not actually a blog post, like I said. So right here is the first one. The post title is going to be the episode title. Show. And then you can add your description down here. So I'm just going to add some more dummy text. And then below that, if you move around, you see this little bubble that shows up. Click on that, and we can add some different things here. So what we want to add is actually audio. And this is going to be how we actually add the file that we want. So if you go to podcasting, you can choose the title of it. So we're going to say episode 1, what is the Michael Bryan Show? And then subtitle is going to be, and then a summary of what it is. Maybe if you want to add some episode notes there as well. The episode type, you could have full by default. It could be a trailer. The season number, season 1, if it exists. Episode 1, episode duration. So that's something you want to put in there. So I'm going to say this one is 0. I think it's only like 30 seconds, 24 seconds or something like that. And so if we want to have podcast analytics URL, we're not going to do that. So we are going to go back to embed, and we want to make sure that we upload the file. So the file is on my desktop. Go upload the example podcast, change the title. So, okay, so there we go. We have the file uploaded. We have podcasting set up right here. Design, you can choose how this looks if you want the minimal design or the classic design. Classic looks, I don't really like it. Go to minimal, you can have dark or light player, and you can show the download link if people are allowed to download this. So let's say apply, and that is our podcast right there. So now if we go up to the top and click done, we can publish this. All right, so our podcast is uploaded now. It's ready to go, but we have to actually subscribe to Squarespace in order for this to actually do anything. We don't have a website right now that's real. So if we go down, currently it's on a 14-day trial anyway. So if we go and click subscribe, they'll bring you to their prices. I'm going to pay monthly just for the purposes of this video. And from this, you can go down and see what the differences are down here. And I'm just going to choose the business one for now. That's one that I would recommend for most people. And now I'm going to pay for it, and we'll get back to this in a second. All right, so now that we have the upgraded website, what we want to do is go to settings, go to site availability, and make sure you select public. I think by default it was private, so go to public, save it, and then go back. And it should tell you what your domain is for this website. So currently it's just some ridiculous name right there. So it's that.squarespace.com. You can buy your own domain if you want. For this video, I'm not going to do that. So finally, our website is set up. We have the podcast uploaded. The final step is actually to list this on Spotify. So you can do this on Apple Music and everything else as well. I'm just going to show you guys on Spotify for the purposes of this video. But if you just go to podcasters.spotify.com/submit, it'll bring you to this page. You'll have to sign into Spotify or otherwise create an account. And we're going to click Get Started. And what they want is our RSS feed. If you don't know what that is, it's actually very easy. All you want to do is, so this is what it is for me. I'm just going to get rid of that for a second. So it is the domain or the URL that leads to your blog. So right now it's, ignore why it's so ugly here. I just didn't buy a domain, but it's that / the blog name right here. So if I hit enter, you'll see that it is going to redirect me to the blog. And then, so instead what we want is the URL for the blog, and then (format equals RSS. So we want to have this, so highlight it, copy it, and if I just hit enter, you'll see that it's going to direct me to a really weird looking page. It doesn't mean anything to us, but to Spotify, that's exactly what they're looking for. So we're going to paste that in here, and again, it is the URL that leads to your blog, and then (format equals RSS. And that's what we're going to have to do. So now we're going to click next. You can see right there the image pops up, the podcast name pops up, the dummy text pops up there. We're going to click next. And then we just have to verify that it is our podcast. They're going to email us. So we're going to send the code, go to our email, and we should be getting this right here. So Squarespace account status. I'm sorry, that's actually not it. That's a different Squarespace email. Here it is. Yeah, so it's not even Squarespace. So Spotify, we're just going to copy that code, going to paste it in right here, and then we're ready to go. So we can click next, and it should be, just click through these couple things, review it, and then submit it. So United States, primary language is English. Hosting is going to be through Squarespace, which they don't show right here. So I'm going to say other. And then our category, prime category, I'm going to say business and technology. And we can choose subcategories. So I'm going to say business, entrepreneurship, and marketing. And we're going to say submit. And it looks like we're ready to go for everything. We're just going to submit it. And then in the future, it will be pulling automatically every time we put a new podcast episode up here. It'll be showing up automatically on Spotify. So here we go. Our podcast is ready to go. So we can track it. We can look at it, do whatever we want. And likewise, once you have the RSS, the little code right there, you can put this on any platform you want. It's very easy to do. So guys, I hope this video helped you understand how to start from absolutely nothing and get a podcast that is listed on Spotify and all the big brands out there. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider going down and clicking the like and subscribe button. Comment if you have any questions. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time.